On a rainy night, a borrowed uniform changed the course of two lives. A misunderstood glance set off a series of unexpected events. Between luxury and humbleness, revelations emerged that no one could have predicted. What began as humiliation ended as something that would change their lives forever. Before you follow this emotional story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring narratives. The rain fell mercilessly over the small town of Blue Cedar, transforming its cobblestone streets into temporary streams that reflected the yellowish lights from the few lampposts still functioning. Emily Mitchell pulled her soaked coat tighter around her body as she ran to take shelter under the awning of the old bookstore, Windswept Pages. Her brown hair, normally arranged in a disciplined bun, was now plastered to her face, and she sighed, frustrated with the storm that had ruined not just her appearance, but possibly her last chance to save the only asset she had left. "Damn rain," she grumbled, shaking her wet hands. "Why today of all days?" Emily looked at her watch. 7:28 p.m. The meeting with Theodore Blackwood was scheduled for 7:30 at Aroma Cafe, just 2 blocks away. If that man was as punctual and rigorous as they said, she could already consider the opportunity lost. The Mitchell name no longer carried the weight it once did. Of the fortune built by her grandfather, the pioneer Augustus Mitchell, founder of the region's largest textile industry, only debts, memories, and the century-old house on the hill remained, an inheritance her father had squandered in gambling and failed businesses, which now risked going to auction. Emily adjusted the strap of her worn bag and prepared to face the rain again. There was no time for vanity. She needed to convince Theodore to buy her project for the old mansion. It wasn't just business. It was her last hope. At the exact moment she took a step out from her temporary shelter, a black car abruptly parked in front of her, splashing water in all directions. The passenger door opened and a male voice sounded from inside the vehicle. "Are you waiting for a delivery from the flood, or would you accept a ride?" Under a black umbrella appeared a man of approximately 40 years old, with graying hair at the temples and a pair of green eyes that analyzed her with curiosity. Emily didn't need formal introductions to recognize Theodore Blackwood. "Mr. Blackwood?" Emily asked, uselessly trying to fix her appearance. "The very same," he answered with a restrained smile. "And you must be Emily Mitchell. I would recognize the amber eyes of the Mitchells anywhere. How did you know I would be here?" "I didn't. I was on my way to the cafe when I saw you running for shelter. Coincidences do exist, after all." He extended the umbrella toward her. "Shall we? The cafe is waiting for us." In the small and cozy Aroma Cafe, Emily held a cup of hot chocolate between her cold hands, watching Theodore browse through her portfolio. The man examined each page with meticulous attention, without showing any reaction. That silence was tearing at her nerves. "Your proposal to transform the Mitchell house into a boutique hotel is interesting," he finally commented, closing the folder. "But I confess I expected something more ambitious." "Ambitious?" Emily swallowed hard. "The project preserves the original architecture while modernizing the facilities. It's exactly what Blue Cedar needs to attract tourists, and—" "I didn't come to Blue Cedar looking for just another small-town hotel, Miss Mitchell," he interrupted, leaning back in his chair. "I came because I heard stories about your family's house, quite peculiar stories." Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. It wasn't just his words that bothered her, but the strange gleam in his eyes when he mentioned the stories. "What kind of stories?" she asked cautiously. "About Augustus Mitchell's hidden legacy," Theodore lowered his voice. "About what really sustained your family's fortune for so many years." "My grandfather was a man of integrity," Emily automatically replied, repeating what she had always heard since childhood. "He built his empire with hard work and with the secrets kept within the walls of that house," Theodore completed, leaning forward. "Secrets worth much more than the property itself." Emily felt her stomach churn. She had grown up hearing rumors about her grandfather, but her mother had always made a point of shielding her from these stories. "Envy from small people," she would say. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do," Theodore smiled. "Perhaps not in detail, but you feel there's something more. That's why, despite financial difficulties, you've never been able—" To part with that house, isn't it? Emily swallowed hard. How could this man know so much about her? About her feelings toward the house? What do you really want, Mr. Blackwood? A partnership, he answered simply. I want to restore the house, not to transform it into a hotel, but to find what your grandfather hid inside. And if I tell you there's nothing hidden, then I would say you're wasting the greatest opportunity of your life. Theodore removed an envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket and slid it across the table. This is just the advance. If we find what I'm looking for, there will be much more. Emily looked at the envelope with suspicion but opened it. Her heart raced when she saw the amount of money inside. It was more than enough to pay off all immediate debts. Why would I trust you? She asked, still holding the envelope. Because, unlike the other interested parties in the house, I'm not pretending to want to preserve the historical heritage, only to later demolish everything and build a condominium. I'm being sincere about my intentions. Other interested parties? Emily frowned. You really don't know how coveted your property is, do you? Theodore shook his head with an almost paternal air. Doesn't Richard Carter keep in touch with you? The name fell like lightning upon Emily. Richard, her ex-fiancé, the man who disappeared from her life 3 years ago, without explanations, taking with him not just her heart, but also the family's last savings, supposedly invested in a business that never existed. Richard is involved in this, she asked, trying to control the tremor in her voice. Involved? Theodore let out a short laugh. He's practically the orchestrator. Why do you think he approached you in the first place? The revelation hit Emily like a slap. All those declarations of love, the plans for the future, the sudden interest in her family's history. Had it all been calculated? I don't believe you, she said, but her voice betrayed the doubt that was beginning to gnaw at her. You don't need to believe me now. Theodore stood up, placing some bills on the table to pay the bill. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I'll be at the entrance to your property. If you decide you want to know the truth about your grandfather and about Richard, be there to receive me. He leaned in, his eyes fixed on hers. And Emily, don't mention our conversation to anyone. There are more people interested in the Mitchell secrets than you can imagine. Without waiting for a response, Theodore walked away, leaving her alone with the envelope and a whirlwind of doubts. Upon arriving home, Emily felt the familiar weight of the century-old property envelop her. The long corridors, the creaking floorboards, the thick walls that had witnessed generations of the Mitchell family. She had grown up there, running through the now poorly maintained gardens, exploring rooms that seemed infinite to a child's eyes. The house was both her refuge and her prison. She turned on the lights in the main room, observing the furniture covered with white sheets, silent ghosts of an era of opulence. In the center, the imposing portrait of Augustus Mitchell still dominated. The environment, his amber eyes, the same as Emily's, following every movement. What did you hide here, Grandpa? She murmured to the portrait, feeling foolish for expecting an answer. The telephone rang, breaking the silence and making Emily jump in surprise. It was almost midnight. Who would call at that hour? Hello, she answered hesitantly. Don't. Trust Blackwood, said a female voice on the other end, urgent and low. He doesn't just want what's hidden in the house, he wants you. Who is this? Emily asked, feeling her heart race. A friend. Tomorrow, before meeting him, go to the cellar. Look behind the wine rack. There's a box with your grandfather's diary. Read it before making any decisions. How do you know about... The phone went dead. Emily tried to call back, but a message informed her that the number didn't exist. Too restless to sleep, Emily decided to follow the mysterious caller's advice. With a flashlight in hand, she descended the narrow stairs that led to the cellar. The air was damp and cold, heavy with the smell of earth and times past. The weak light of the flashlight danced across the stone walls, creating shadows that seemed to move on their own. The wine rack was at the back, covered with a thick layer of dust. Emily began to examine the structure, looking for some secret compartment or hidden mechanism. After nearly giving up, she noticed that one of the boards on the wall behind the rack was slightly misaligned. She pushed the rack with effort and, Upon pressing the board, a small door was revealed. Inside was a wooden box engraved with the initials A.M., Augustus Mitchell. With trembling hands, Emily opened the box. Inside, among some yellowed documents, was a leather-bound book, the diary mentioned by the woman on the phone. Beside it was a sealed envelope with her name written in the elegant handwriting she recognized as her mother's. Emily sat on the dusty floor, propped the flashlight on a nearby shelf, and opened the envelope. Dear Emily, if you are reading this letter, it's because the moment I have long feared has finally arrived. The secrets I protected throughout your life have finally reached you. What you will discover in your grandfather's diary will change everything you thought you knew about our family. Augustus was not the man everyone thought they knew. His fortune didn't come just from the textile factories. The walls of our house guard the true legacy of the Mitchells. Long ago, your grandfather found something of inestimable value on the land where our house was built. Something that many searched for, but only he found. Something that in the wrong hands could bring devastating consequences. Emily, trust only your heart. And remember, the true key is not made of metal. With all my love, your mother. Emily felt hot tears running down her face. Her mother had passed away 5 years ago, victim of a sudden illness, without ever mentioning anything about family. Secrets. Why keep such revelations for a posthumous letter? With a heavy heart, she opened Augustus Mitchell's diary. The first pages contained mundane records about the construction of the house and the beginnings of the family business. But as she progressed in her reading, the notes became more cryptic, with references to the finding and the source. One passage in particular caught her attention. May 12, 1932. I finally understood the true value of what we found beneath the lunar stone. It is not just a material treasure, but the key to something much greater. The foreigners offered a fortune, but I refused. Some discoveries are priceless. I built this house not just as a home for my family, but as an eternal guardian of the secret. The walls know the labyrinth is complete. Only someone with Mitchell blood will be able to decipher it when the time comes. The following pages contained intricate drawings, similar to maps, with annotations in a language that Emily didn't recognize. On the last page of the diary, a solitary and unsettling phrase. To find the beginning, follow the amber eyes when the morning light touches the glass. Emily closed the diary, her mind buzzing with questions. What had her grandfather found? Who were the foreigners mentioned? And how did all of this connect to Richard and Theodore Blackwood? One thing was certain. The Mitchell house guarded much more than family memories. And now Emily needed to decide who to trust, if there was anyone worthy of trust in this story. As she climbed the stairs back to the main floor, Emily didn't notice the silhouette watching her through the cellar window, nor did she hear the discreet click of a camera recording her every move. That night, under the roof of the old Mitchell mansion, the game for Augustus's mysterious legacy was just beginning. And Emily, unknowingly, was already the central piece in a match whose rules she still didn't understand. The clock in the room chimed once, marking 1 o'clock in the morning. Emily looked at the diary in her hands and then at her grandfather's. The portrait. The amber eyes in the painting seemed more alive than ever, as if they wanted to tell her something. To find the beginning, follow the amber eyes when the morning light touches the glass. Emily whispered the enigmatic words as a new determination grew within her. Before the sun rose, before Theodore Blackwood arrived with his questions and tempting offers, she needed to discover for herself what those walls had hidden for so long. Dawn arrived with agonizing slowness. Emily hadn't been able to sleep, her thoughts oscillating between the revelations in the diary, the enigmatic words of her mother, and the imminent arrival of Theodore Blackwood. Sitting in the red velvet armchair in the library, she watched. The first rays of sun penetrate through the cracks in the dusty curtains, forming golden streaks on the floor. Follow the amber eyes when the morning light touches the glass. The phrase from the diary echoed in her mind like a mantra. The amber eyes, the Mitchell family trademark. Emily jumped up with a start. It couldn't be a coincidence. She walked to her grandfather's portrait in the main room, studying it carefully. The oil painting showed Augustus Mitchell in his prime, seated in an armchair similar to the one in the library, with a landscape in the background that Emily recognized as the mansion's gardens. "What are you trying to tell me, Grandpa?" she murmured, examining every detail of the painting. It was then that she noticed something peculiar. The angle of Augustus's gaze in the painting wasn't directed forward, as was common in formal portraits, but slightly deviated to the right, as if observing something specific. Emily followed the direction of his gaze and realized that it pointed to the large Venetian mirror on the opposite wall. The mirror was a family heirloom, framed in silver, worked with foliage details and small amber stones inlaid, another reference to the characteristic eyes of the Mitchells. Emily approached the object, feeling her heart race. As the sun rose on the horizon, the morning light finally reached the mirror, reflecting off the amber stones and creating small, luminous points that danced around the room. For a moment, Emily was hypnotized by the phenomenon. Then she realized that the reflections weren't random. They formed a pattern on the adjacent wall. Following the points of light, she was led to an apparently ordinary wooden panel. She pressed it gently, and, to her surprise, the panel yielded, revealing a small compartment. Inside was a metal box, ornamented with the same motifs as the mirror. Emily removed it carefully and opened it. Inside, she found an old key and a yellowed scroll. Unrolling the paper with delicacy, she found herself facing a map of the house, different from any floor plan she had ever seen. Several points were marked with strange symbols, and lines connected certain rooms in ways that didn't make sense in the real structure of the mansion. "The labyrinth," whispered Emily, remembering the mention in the diary. "The house is a labyrinth." The sound of tires on the gravel of the entrance interrupted her thoughts. Emily quickly folded the map, stored it along with the key in her coat pocket, and replaced the panel. Through the window, she saw Theodore Blackwood's black car crossing the property gates. It was too early, only 8:30, almost 2 hours before. The agreed time. Emily took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. She needed to buy time to find out more about Theodore's intentions without revealing what she had just found. She hid her grandfather's diary in an improvised hiding place behind a bookshelf in the library and headed to the main entrance, adjusting her wrinkled clothes from the sleepless night. Theodore Blackwood wasn't alone. By his side, an elegant woman with grey hair pulled back in an impeccable bun examined the facade of the mansion with critical eyes. Emily immediately recognized Victoria Campbell, the most respected historian in the region, specialist in historical heritage and author of several books about the traditional families of Blue Cedar, including the Mitchells. "Miss Mitchell, forgive me for being early," Theodore greeted her with a calculated smile. "I hope I haven't interrupted your breakfast." "Actually, you have," Emily replied dryly, casting an inquisitive look at the historian. "Dr. Campbell, what a surprise to have you here." "The pleasure is mine, dear," Victoria smiled, but the gesture didn't reach her eyes. "When Theodore mentioned his project for the Mitchell house, I made a point of offering my consultation. This property has an inestimable historical value." "I didn't know you two knew each other," Emily commented, maintaining a casual tone while trying to decipher the dynamic between the two. "The worlds of investment and historical preservation cross more frequently than one might imagine," Theodore explained, gesturing toward the house. "Victoria has been a valuable advisor on several of my projects." "Interesting," Emily murmured. "Well, since you're here, we can talk on the porch. The house is a bit disorganized for receiving visitors." "Oh, don't worry about that," Victoria intervened, taking a step forward. "Actually, we're eager to see the interior, especially the library and the music room. I understand those were your grandfather's favorite areas." Emily's discomfort increased. How did Victoria know about her grandfather's preferences? That information wasn't in any of the historian's published books. "The house needs considerable repairs before any official." "How is it?" Emily insisted, subtly blocking the entrance. "Besides, I believe we had agreed on 10 o'clock, Mr. Blackwood." "Time is money, my dear," Theodore replied with a smile that didn't hide his impatience. "And speaking of money, I brought a preliminary contract for our partnership. I thought we could discuss it while Victoria does an initial evaluation of the property. Emily felt cornered. The early arrival, Victoria's unexpected presence, the rush to formalize an agreement, everything indicated that Theodore knew more than he let on. He wasn't there just out of historical curiosity or business opportunity. There was an urgency in his movements that alarmed her. "I'm sorry, but I need more time to consider your proposal," Emily declared, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "I suggest we stick to the original plan. We'll meet at 10 o'clock as agreed, and then we can discuss the terms of a possible partnership." Theodore's smile disappeared, replaced by an expression that mixed surprise and irritation. Clearly he wasn't used to having his plans contradicted. "Emily, I understand your hesitation, but—" "Theodore, please," Victoria interrupted him, placing a hand on his arm. "Miss Mitchell has every right to establish the terms on her own. Property. We'll return at the agreed time." The look that Victoria gave Emily didn't match her conciliatory words. There was something calculating, almost predatory in her expression. "As you wish," Theodore finally agreed, taking a step back. "At 10 o'clock then, but think carefully, Emily. My offer has a limited time frame." As she watched the car drive away, Emily knew she had won only a small battle. She had less than 2 hours to discover more about the labyrinth mentioned in the diary, and more importantly, about Theodore Blackwood and Victoria Campbell's true intentions. As soon as the car disappeared around the bend in the road, Emily ran to the phone. She needed help, someone she could trust. After brief moments of hesitation, she dialed the number she had avoided for so long. "Anthony Winters speaking," answered a deep voice on the other end of the line. "Anthony, it's Emily." She took a deep breath. "Emily Mitchell, I know it's been a while, but I need your help. It's about the house." There was a moment of silence, so prolonged that Emily thought the call had dropped. "I'm on my way," Anthony finally replied. "Don't open the door to anyone until I get there." The call ended abruptly, leaving Emily with a sense of relief mixed with apprehension. Anthony Winters had been her father's best friend and the family's lawyer for decades. After the financial decline of the Mitchells, he had kept his distance, a distancing that Emily had always attributed to the discomfort of seeing the family that once represented the pinnacle of local society reduced to near poverty. Now, however, she wondered if there was more to this story. If her grandfather's secrets were as valuable as Theodore implied, how many other people knew about them? And more importantly, who was really on her side? While waiting for Anthony, Emily decided to explore the mysterious map further. Returning to the library, she retrieved the parchment from her pocket and spread it out on the large oak table. In the clear morning light, the details were even more intriguing. What initially seemed to be just a scheme of the house was revealed as something much more complex. There were indications of passages that didn't exist in the official plans, symbols in specific locations, and, most curiously, small texts written in a language that Emily couldn't decipher. One of the symbols particularly caught her attention, a 5-pointed star inside a circle, positioned exactly where the central floor of the music room was. Emily had never paid much attention to that room. After the loss of the grand piano, sold to pay debts, the room had remained practically abandoned. Driven by curiosity, she headed to the location. The music room occupied the west wing of the mansion, with high windows that provided a privileged view of the now neglected gardens. In the center of the room, a Persian rug covered part of the floor. Emily pushed it aside, revealing an intricate marquetry work on the floor, a circular pattern of different woods that subtly formed the same symbol from the map, the 5-pointed star. With her heart racing, she knelt and ran her fingers along the outline of the star. One of the points seemed slightly elevated compared to the others. Emily pressed it and, to her surprise, heard a metallic click. The center of the circle sank a few centimeters, revealing a small cavity where a shiny object rested. It was a silver medallion, ornamented with the same 5-pointed star and small amber stones around it. Emily picked it up carefully, feeling the surprising weight for its size. As she turned it over, she discovered an inscription on the back. "The key is not made of metal, but of light and blood." The same words from her mother's letter. The true key is not made of metal. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. The puzzle was starting to make sense, although she was still far from understanding the complete picture. The sound of a door slamming on the lower floor made her rise abruptly. She put the medallion in her pocket, replaced the rug in its place, and cautiously headed for the entrance hall. Through the side window, she recognized Anthony Winters's car. The lawyer hadn't changed much since the last time Emily had seen him, almost 2 years ago. The same tortoise-shell glasses, the always well-trimmed grey hair, the impeccable posture that reflected his years as a military officer before entering law. What surprised Emily was the expression on his face, a mixture of concern and something she could only describe as fear. "You found something, didn't you?" were Anthony's first words without any prior greeting. "How did you—" "Theodore Blackwood was here," it wasn't a question, "and now you're looking for answers." "You knew about the house's secrets?" Emily asked directly, tired of half-truths. Anthony sighed deeply, seeming to age 10 years in an instant. "Your father made me swear I would never tell. He believed that the less you knew, the safer you would be." "Safe from what, exactly?" Emily crossed her arms, her voice mixing frustration and determination. "Blackwood isn't the first to come after my grandfather's legacy, and apparently even my ex-fiancé was involved in this." Richard Carter. Anthony practically spat the name. "That young man was just one of many who tried to get close to the family over the years. Your father managed to keep most of them away until he lost everything in gambling and failed businesses," Emily completed bitterly. "It wasn't quite like that, Emily." Anthony shook his head. "Your father didn't lose the family fortune through incompetence or vices. He spent it deliberately." "What?" Emily felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "Why would he do that?" "To protect what really mattered." Anthony looked significantly around the house. "This mansion, what it hides. Your father believed that if the family lost its status and wealth, eventually those interested would lose interest too. A risky strategy that worked only partially." "And what is this great secret, after all?" Emily questioned, her patience running out. "What did my grandfather find that's worth all this mystery, all these people willing to do anything to get their hands on it?" Anthony walked to the window, looking outside as if checking if they were being watched. When he spoke again, his voice was almost a whisper. "Your grandfather, Augustus Mitchell, didn't build his fortune just with the textile factories. That was a convenient facade. The true beginning of everything was what he discovered during the construction of this house in 1932. Something that changed not just your family's destiny, but that could change the destiny of many if it fell into the wrong hands. And what would be?" Emily's words were interrupted by the shrill sound of the doorbell. Anthony made a quick gesture for her to remain silent and cautiously approached the door. Through the frosted glass, Emily glimpsed the silhouette of a woman. "Any problem?" she asked in a low voice. "You didn't invite anyone else, did you?" Anthony replied with another question, his hand instinctively moving inside his jacket. Emily shook her head, feeling a chill of apprehension. The mystery surrounding the Mitchell house seemed to attract people like moths to light, and she couldn't distinguish between allies and enemies. Whoever was at her door now brought with them one more piece of the puzzle, or represented one more threat to the fragile understanding that Emily was beginning to form about her own legacy. The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time, as the clock in the room marked 9 o'clock. Time was running out. "Don't open it," whispered Anthony, positioning himself protectively between Emily and the door. It could be a trap. The doorbell rang for the 3rd time, followed by firm knocks on the solid wood. "Emily, I know you're in there. I need to talk to you urgently." The female voice on the other side of the door made Emily furrow her brow in recognition. "It's Lucy Parker," she murmured to Anthony, "the journalist from the Blue Cedar Daily." "One more reason not to open," Anthony replied dryly. "The last thing we need is the press sniffing around this story." Emily hesitated. Lucy wasn't just any journalist. They had been college classmates before financial problems forced Emily to abandon her architecture course. For years, Lucy had tried to maintain contact, but Emily, ashamed by her family's decline, had gradually distanced herself from all her old friends. Emily, please. Lucy's voice sounded again, now lower and more urgent. It's about Richard. He's coming back to town, and he's not alone. The name of her ex-fiancé was like a trigger. Emily pushed Anthony aside and opened the door, revealing Lucy Parker in her characteristic work outfit, dark dress pants, white shirt, and the inseparable red blazer that had become her trademark in the social columns of Blue Cedar. You have 2 minutes, Emily declared coldly, preventing the journalist from entering. We need to talk in private, Lucy insisted, casting a distrustful look at Anthony. What I have to say is not for outside ears. Dr. Winters is the family lawyer, Emily retorted. Anything you need to tell me can be said in his presence. Lucy bit her lower lip, clearly uncomfortable, but the urgency of her mission seemed to overcome her reservations. Richard is returning to Blue Cedar this afternoon, accompanied by foreign investors. They've checked into the Grand Hotel under false names, but I have my sources. She lowered her voice. Emily, they're talking about a historical acquisition that will change the course of the town, and they specifically mentioned the Mitchell name. Emily exchanged a significant look with Anthony before finally making way for Lucy to enter. As she closed the door, she noticed a dark car parked across the street, almost hidden by the vegetation. She felt a chill run down her spine. Were they being watched? How did you find this out? Anthony questioned as soon as they reached the library, the most private place in the house. I'm a journalist, Doctor, Lucy answered with an ironic smile, and a good journalist protects her sources. We're not playing games. Here, Emily intervened, her trembling voice betraying her apparent calm. If what you say is true, I need to know exactly what's happening. Lucy studied the face of her old friend for a moment before yielding. I work at the reception of the Grand Hotel at night to supplement my income at the newspaper. Last night, I received a call from a man with a foreign accent, reserving the presidential suite for a group that would arrive today. He mentioned the name Phoenix Consortium. She made a dramatic pause. The same group that Richard started working for after leaving Blue Cedar. Phoenix Consortium? Anthony visibly paled, leaning on the table as if his legs had weakened. You know them? Emily asked, alarmed by the lawyer's reaction. Your father mentioned them a few times, he answered vaguely. An international organization, powerful and unscrupulous, specializing in acquiring historical properties throughout Latin America. For preservation? Asked Emily, although she already suspected the answer. For exploitation, Anthony corrected. They're not interested in architectural or cultural value, but in what might be hidden in these properties. Treasures, historical artifacts, anything. That can be sold on the international black market. How do you know so much about them? Lucy asked, her journalistic instinct sharpened. Because they already tried to buy this house before, Emily suddenly answered, recalling conversations she had overheard between her father and Anthony years ago. That's when my father started selling the family's assets, wasn't it? To make the property less attractive, to make it seem like there was nothing of value here. Anthony nodded slowly. Your father believed that if the family appeared bankrupt, interest in the secret would diminish. It was a desperate strategy. And it clearly didn't work, Emily concluded bitterly. First, Theodore Blackwood, and now the Phoenix Consortium. Whatever is hidden in this house, many powerful people are willing to do anything to obtain it. And what exactly is hidden here? Lucy couldn't contain her journalistic curiosity. Emily hesitated. Could she trust Lucy? The journalist had brought valuable information, but her intentions remained obscure. On the other hand, she needed allies, and time was running out. I'm not sure, Emily finally answered, deciding to reveal only part of the truth. Apparently, my grandfather found something of great value during the construction of this house. Something he hid in a system of secret passages. A labyrinth, completed Anthony. Augustus Mitchell transformed the house itself into a complex protection system. According to what your father told me, only someone with Mitchell blood could navigate it safely. Lucy's eyes widened, clearly fascinated. That would make an incredible story. The mysterious mansion of Blue Cedar, a treasure hidden for decades, disputed by international organizations. Don't even think about it, Emily cut her off dryly. If you publish anything about this, you'll be putting our lives at risk. Lucy's Smile disappeared, replaced by an expression of genuine concern. "I'm sorry, professional deformation," she sighed. "But Emily, you need to understand the gravity of the situation. If the Phoenix Consortium is involved, we're not just talking about aggressive negotiations. These people are truly dangerous." "And Richard is working for them," Emily completed, feeling a tightness in her chest when thinking about the man she once loved. "It all makes sense now. The sudden interest in my family's history, the questions about the house, the insistence on knowing every room." "He was mapping the place," Anthony concluded. "He probably already knew about the secret even before meeting you." The harsh reality hit Emily like a physical blow. Their entire relationship had been a farce, an elaborate reconnaissance operation. Every moment of intimacy, every declaration of love, all calculated to obtain information about the Mitchell's secret. "We don't have much time," she declared, forcing herself to swallow the pain and anger. "Theodore Blackwood will be here in less than an hour, and if the Phoenix Consortium really arrives this afternoon, we need to find what they're looking for before they do," completed Lucy, a gleam of determination in her eyes. "And then decide what to do with it." Emily hesitated again, pondering whether she should reveal the discoveries she had made that morning. She decided she had no choice. She needed help to decipher the mystery in time. "I found these," she took the map and the medallion from her pocket, placing them on the table. "And also my grandfather's diary." Anthony examined the objects with reverent admiration, as if he were in the presence of sacred relics. "So it's true," he murmured. "Your father always said Augustus left clues for his descendants." Lucy leaned over the map, her journalistic eyes catching details that others might have missed. "These symbols, they're not random. They seem to form a kind of narrative." She pointed to a sequence of markings, as if they indicated a specific order to be followed. "The key is not made of metal, but of light and blood," Emily recited, turning the medallion between her fingers. "Both my mother and my grandfather mentioned this." "The amber eyes," Anthony suddenly exclaimed. "Of course, the most distinctive trait of the Mitchells. The light, through the amber and the blood of the family." "The medallion has amber stones inlaid," observed Emily, examining the object with new attention. "If light passes through them—" "We need direct sunlight," Lucy concluded, looking at the clock. "It's almost 9:30. We have to figure this out before Blackwood arrives." Emily guided them to the music room, where morning light entered abundantly through the high windows. She positioned herself in the center of the room, exactly over the star symbol that the rug now covered again. "Here," she said, raising the medallion against the light coming through the window. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The amber stones refracted the sunlight, projecting a complex pattern on the walls of the room. Luminous points danced around the environment, eventually converging on a specific location, a decorative panel on the east wall. "There," Lucy pointed. Excited, Emily approached the panel, which showed a typical pastoral scene of the Virginia countryside. Upon closer examination, she noticed that the eyes of the central shepherd in the engraving were made of small amber stones, similar to those on the medallion. "Amber eyes," she murmured, gently pressing the figure. With a soft mechanical click, the panel slid to the side, revealing a narrow and dark passage. "The beginning of the labyrinth," Anthony whispered, a mixture of admiration and apprehension in his voice. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. After years living in that house, she discovered that its secrets were much deeper than she had ever imagined. How many other hidden passages would exist behind the familiar walls? What else had her grandfather hidden in the bowels of the mansion? "We need flashlights," she declared, naturally assuming leadership. While Anthony searched for flashlights in the tool cabinet, Lucy studied the map with intensity. "Emily, look at this," called the journalist. "If I'm interpreting correctly, this isn't just a map of the house, but a guide to the labyrinth. Each symbol seems to indicate a specific type of challenge or mechanism." "Challenges?" Emily frowned. "Your grandfather didn't just build secret passages," Lucy explained, her enthusiasm growing. "He created an elaborate protection system, something that only someone with knowledge of the family could navigate safely. Like a legitimacy test, concluded Emily, recalling passages from the diary, to ensure that only a true Mitchell could reach what he had hidden. Anthony returned with 3 flashlights and a grave expression. "We have a problem. There's a car parked at the entrance. Theodore Blackwood has arrived early." "Damn it," Emily consulted the clock. There were still 20 minutes until the agreed time. "He's playing dirty. He probably realized we're moving," Anthony analyzed. "We need to divide forces. Someone has to distract him while we investigate the passage." "I'll do that," offered Lucy, adjusting her red blazer. "I'm a journalist. Making up stories is my specialty." "Are you sure?" Emily hesitated. "We don't know how dangerous he can be." "I'll be in the house with you nearby," Lucy assured. "Besides, if he sees me here, he'll have to be cautious. A missing journalist would attract a lot of attention." The plan quickly took shape. Lucy would receive Theodore and keep him busy in the main room, pretending to be doing a report on historical mansions in the region. Meanwhile, Emily and Anthony would explore the secret passage, following the guidance of the map. 1 hour, determined Emily. "If we don't return in 1 hour, leave the house and call the police." Lucy nodded, her normally cheerful face now serious and determined. "Be careful." And Emily, she hesitated briefly. "I'm sorry for distancing myself when your family went through difficulties. I was a terrible friend." "Now is not the time for that," Emily responded, but her tone softened. "We can settle our accounts after we solve this mystery." The doorbell rang, echoing through the house like an ominous warning. Lucy took a deep breath, adjusted her blazer once more, and went to receive the unwanted visitor. Emily and Anthony, in turn, lit the flashlights and entered the dark passage, closing the panel behind them. The corridor was narrow, with damp stone walls and a low ceiling that forced Anthony to walk slightly hunched over. The air was cold and stagnant, with a slight odor of mold and antiquity. Their flashlights projected dancing shadows that seemed to take on a life of their own in the claustrophobic environment. "How did my grandfather build all this without anyone noticing?" Emily murmured, touching the meticulously laid stone walls. "Augustus was known for bringing foreign workers," Anthony explained as they cautiously advanced. "People without local connections who didn't speak English. After the main construction was finished, rumors circulated that he kept some of them for years, working on secret projects within the property." "And no one found that strange?" "Those days, the power of the Mitchells was absolute in Blue Cedar," Anthony replied. "No one questioned their eccentricities." The corridor made a sharp turn to the right, and soon they found themselves at a fork. 3 identical paths opened before them, without any indication of which they should follow. "The map," Emily murmured, carefully unfolding it. Under the flashlight's beam, she studied the symbols. "Here, this symbol of 3 lines must represent this fork, and the middle line is marked with a small amber." "The middle path, then," concluded Anthony. Emily hesitated, re-examining the map. "No, that would be too obvious. My grandfather wouldn't make it so easy." She raised the medallion, letting the flashlight's light pass through the amber stones. A pattern appeared on the wall adjacent to the left corridor, a small star, almost imperceptible, carved into the stone. "This way." As they advanced through the labyrinth, Emily felt a strange familiarity growing within her, as if her body recognized the path even though her conscious mind did not. The Mitchell blood seemed to resonate with the ancestral stones, guiding her steps through the enigmas designed by her grandfather. After several minutes of walking, they reached a small circular chamber. In the center, a stone pedestal supported a shallow, empty basin. On the walls around, intricate carvings formed a visual narrative, scenes of the founding of Blue Cedar, the arrival of the first Mitchells to the region, the construction of the factories, and finally the mansion being erected. "It's a story in stone," murmured Emily, amazed. "But what's the next step?" Anthony questioned, examining the room in search of another passage. Emily consulted the map again. The chamber was clearly marked, with a symbol that resembled a drop. "The key is not made of metal, but of light and blood," she recited again. She looked at the empty basin on the pedestal and understood. Blood. Before Anthony could protest, she removed a small pocket knife she always carried, an inheritance from her father. With calm determination, she made a small cut on the tip of her index finger, allowing a few drops of blood to fall into the basin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as if reacting to the contact with Mitchell blood, the basin began to emit a soft amber glow. The red liquid expanded, transforming into a complex pattern that resembled a celestial map. A mechanical noise filled the chamber, and a section of the wall slid to the side, revealing a new passage. "Impressive," Anthony murmured, clearly disturbed by the demonstration of Augustus Mitchell's ingenuity. "Your grandfather was a genius." "Or a madman," Emily replied, quickly bandaging her finger with a handkerchief. "What kind of man turns his own house into a labyrinth protected by blood?" "The kind that has something extraordinary to protect," Anthony replied somberly. They proceeded through the new passage, descending a spiral staircase that seemed to plunge into the depths of the earth. Emily calculated that they must already be well below the level of the main house, perhaps even under the gardens. The staircase ended in another chamber, much larger than the first. This one, however, was not empty. In the center, on a marble pedestal, rested an object covered by a velvet cloth faded by time. Emily felt her heart race. Finally, they were before the secret that her grandfather had so zealously protected, the treasure that so many sought. With trembling hands, she approached the pedestal. Before touching the covered object, she noticed an inscription on the marble base. "To my blood I entrust the destiny of the world. May wisdom guide your choices." Emily took a deep breath and removed the velvet, revealing what had been hidden for so many decades. Anthony gasped, involuntarily taking a step back. "My God," he murmured. So the rumors were true. Emily remained silent, contemplating the discovery with a mixture of fascination and terror. Now she understood why so many were willing to do anything to find the Mitchell secret, and she also understood why her grandfather had created such an elaborate labyrinth to protect it. For what rested on the pedestal was not a conventional treasure of gold or jewels. It was something infinitely more valuable and dangerous. A distant noise interrupted her thoughts. Sounds of struggle muffled by the distance and the thick stone walls, but unmistakable. "Lucy," Emily murmured, suddenly alarmed. "Something's happening up there." "We need to go back," Anthony declared, already heading for the stairs. "Wait!" Emily looked again at the object on the pedestal. "We can't leave it here. This is what they want." Quickly, she covered the object again with the velvet and took it in her hands. It was surprisingly light for something that carried so much historical weight. "Are you sure about this?" Anthony questioned, his face pale with concern. "Your grandfather kept it hidden for a reason, and now it's my responsibility," Emily responded firmly. "I won't let it fall into the wrong hands." With the precious burden secured against her chest, Emily followed Anthony back through the labyrinth, guided by the map and the medallion. The sounds of confrontation became clearer as they approached the exit. What had happened to Lucy? Had Theodore discovered their plan? Or was it something worse? Perhaps the Phoenix Consortium had arrived earlier than expected. Emily quickened her pace, feeling that time was rapidly running out. The true game was just beginning, and now she carried in her arms the prize that everyone desired. A prize that could change the course of history, if her grandfather's words were correct. As they approached the panel that gave access to the music room, Emily's urgency grew. The object in her arms seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if responding to her anxiety. Whatever challenges awaited her on the other side of that wall, one thing was certain. After this morning, her life would never be the same again. Emily and Anthony stopped before the panel that separated them from the music room, listening attentively. The sounds of confrontation had ceased, replaced by an even more disturbing silence. Emily clutched the velvet-wrapped object to her chest, feeling her heart hammering against her ribs. "It could be a trap," whispered Anthony, positioning himself protectively in front of her. "Let me check first." "No," Emily firmly held him back. "This is my house and my responsibility. We'll go together." Carefully, she pressed the opening mechanism. The panel slid silently, revealing the apparently empty music room. Cautiously, they emerged from the secret passage, their eyes scanning every corner of the room for signs of danger. "Lucy," called Emily in a low voice, but received no response. Anthony walked to the door, opened it slightly, and peered into the hallway. "I don't see anyone, but I hear voices coming from the library." Emily nodded, making a quick decision. She moved to an old cabinet in the corner of the room, opened it, and gently placed the covered object inside, among yellowed sheet music and long, silenced musical instruments. "We need to find out what happened to Lucy," she declared, closing the cabinet. "And who else is in the house?" Moving like shadows, they made their way down the hallway toward the library. As they approached, the voices became clearer, and one of them sent a shiver down Emily's spine. "Richard," she murmured, instantly, recognizing the deep timbre that had once whispered words of love to her. Anthony gestured for her to stay low. Together, they approached the half-open library door, positioning themselves to observe the interior without being seen. The scene unfolding was disturbing. Lucy was sitting in a chair, her hands tied behind her back, and a cut on her lip indicating resistance. In front of her, Theodore Blackwood paced nervously back and forth, gesturing as he spoke. And leaning against the desk, with an air of casual arrogance that Emily knew so well, was Richard Carter. 3 years hadn't changed his appearance much. The same angular and attractive face, the penetrating dark eyes, the smile that alternated between charm and cruelty. He wore an impeccably tailored suit, and an obviously expensive watch gleamed on his wrist, evidence of the financial success he had achieved after abandoning Emily and Blue Cedar. "Wasting precious time," Theodore was saying, his voice tense. "The consortium will be here in a few hours, and we need to find the artifact before that." "Relax, Blackwood," Richard replied with that irritating confidence that Emily remembered well. "Emily is somewhere in the house, probably hidden in those secret passages that old Augustus built. Eventually she'll have to come out." "And if she's already found what we're looking for?" questioned Theodore, running his hand through his graying hair in a gesture of frustration. "You said she didn't know about the house's secrets, but you were clearly wrong. That woman," he pointed to Lucy, "wasn't here by chance." "Emily was always smarter than she appeared," Richard commented with a nostalgic smile that made Emily's blood boil. "It was one of the reasons I approached her. I knew she would eventually discover her grandfather's legacy." "You're wasting time," Lucy intervened, defiant despite the situation. "Emily is no longer in the house. As soon as we realized your true intentions, Mr. Blackwood, she escaped through the back with whatever you were looking for." The lie was audacious, and Emily felt a wave of gratitude for her friend. Even captured, Lucy was still trying to protect her. "You're a terrible liar, Miss Parker," Theodore replied coldly. "The security system I discreetly installed yesterday monitors all entrances and exits. No one has left this property in the last few hours." "Security system?" Richard frowned. "You didn't mention that before." A brief, tense silence established itself between the two men, and Emily noted with growing interest that their partnership was far from harmonious. "There are many things I didn't mention," Theodore retorted dryly. "Just as you, apparently, omitted important details about Emily's knowledge of the labyrinth." Richard shrugged, indifferent to the accusation. "Business is business, Blackwood. In the end, what matters is who delivers the artifact to the consortium, and who receives the 20 million euros reward," completed Theodore with an artificial smile. "Don't forget that part." 20 million? Lucy couldn't disguise her surprise. "What kind of artifact is worth all that?" Richard exchanged a significant look with Theodore before responding. "The kind that changes the course of history, dear journalist. The kind that nations would go to war to possess." Emily felt Anthony stiffen beside her. The lawyer took a piece of paper from his pocket and hastily wrote, "We need professional help. I'll go seek reinforcements. Stay hidden." Before she could protest, he silently moved away, heading for the back of the house. Emily remained crouched by the door, torn between following Anthony and trying to help Lucy. The decision was made. For her, when a fourth person entered the library through the door that led to the garden, an elegant woman with grey hair whom she immediately recognized. "Victoria Campbell," she whispered to herself, watching the historian enter with the self-confidence of someone who knows the environment well. Blackwood, we have problems, Victoria announced without preamble. The consortium team arrived earlier. They're staying at the Grand Hotel and coming here right now. Change of plans. Theodore visibly paled. That's impossible. The meeting was scheduled for 5 p.m. Apparently they don't trust you, Victoria replied with an ironic smile. Something related to a previous attempt to negotiate independently with the owners of another relic in Argentina. Damn them, Theodore muttered, before composing himself. How much time do we have? 30 minutes at most. Victoria looked at Lucy with curiosity. Who is she? A complication, replied Richard, approaching the historian with excessive familiarity. But nothing we can't handle, right, Victoria? The smile they exchanged sent another shiver down Emily's spine. The level of betrayal continued to expand. Not just Richard, but also Victoria Campbell, the respected historian whom all of Blue Cedar trusted to preserve the region's historical heritage. We need to find Emily now, declared Theodore, his tone urgent. If the consortium arrives and we don't have the artifact, we won't complete the deal, concluded Victoria dryly, and we all know what happens to those who disappoint the Phoenix Consortium. A heavy silence fell over the group, broken only by the distant sound of thunder. A storm was approaching, both literally and figuratively. Emily slowly backed away, her heart racing. She needed a plan. With Anthony seeking help and Lucy a hostage, she was alone. And now, in addition to Theodore and Richard, she also had Victoria to face, and the mysterious Phoenix Consortium on its way. As she considered her options, a new thought struck her. Perhaps she could use the rivalry between Theodore and Richard to her advantage. Clearly neither of them fully trusted the other, and both seemed willing to betray their partner for the promised reward. Carefully, Emily moved away from the library and headed to the music room. Her plan was beginning to take shape, a risky plan, but possibly the only chance to save Lucy and protect her grandfather's legacy. Upon entering the music room, however, Emily had an unpleasant surprise. The cabinet where she had hidden the artifact was open, and the object had disappeared. A faint jasmine perfume lingered in the air, a perfume she didn't recognize. There was someone else in the house, someone who knew the labyrinth's secrets and knew exactly what to look for. Before she could fully process this discovery, Emily heard footsteps approaching. Quickly she hid behind a heavy curtain, controlling her breathing as she observed through a small gap. Theodore entered the room, followed by Richard. Both seemed tense, whispering in an urgent tone. Are you sure she would come? Here, questioned Richard, looking around with suspicion. It's what the map indicates, Theodore replied, pulling from his pocket a piece of paper that Emily recognized with alarm. It was a copy of the labyrinth map. The music room is one of the central points of the system. If she found the artifact, she must have passed through here. Richard approached the cabinet, noticed it was ajar, and examined it carefully. Someone was here recently, he declared, turning to Theodore with suspicion. Are you sure you're not double-crossing me, Blackwood? Don't be ridiculous, Theodore retorted, although his nervous look betrayed some kind of guilt. Why would I do that when we're so close? 20 million euros are an excellent motive, Richard smiled humorlessly. And we both know that you tried to negotiate directly with the owners of that relic in Buenos Aires, cutting the consortium out of the deal. That was a long time ago, Theodore looked away. I learned my lesson. I'm sure you did, Richard replied sarcastically, just as I'm sure that the scars on your back are a daily reminder of it. Emily watched, fascinated, the dynamic between the two men. It was evident that they worked together only out of necessity, not trust or loyalty. This could be useful. We have to keep searching, Theodore declared after a tense moment. You check the upper floor, I'll take the main rooms. And leave you alone with the artifact if you find it? No way, Richard smiled maliciously. We'll go together. Fine, Theodore yielded, visibly irritated. But we don't have much time before the consortium arrives. The two men left the room, still exchanging distrustful looks, leaving Emily momentarily alone with her agitated thoughts. The artifact had disappeared. Lucy remained a hostage in the library, and the Phoenix Consortium was on its way. The situation was rapidly deteriorating. It was then that Emily noticed something on the floor near the cabinet, a small brooch of peculiar shape representing a solar eclipse. She picked it up carefully, examining it in the light that entered through the windows. It wasn't something that belonged to the Mitchell house, of this she was certain. Whoever had taken the artifact had inadvertently left a clue. A sudden noise made Emily hide again. The door to the music room opened once more, and Victoria Campbell entered, looking cautiously around before closing the door behind her. The A. Historian went directly to the panel that gave access to the secret passage, activating the mechanism with the familiarity of someone who had known it for a long time. Emily watched, astonished, as the panel slid, and Victoria disappeared into the labyrinth. How did she know how to operate the passage? How did she know secrets that had remained hidden even from Emily herself? Acting on impulse, Emily waited a few seconds and followed the historian, silently sliding into the passage before the panel, automatically closed. She knew it was risky, but her intuition told her that Victoria was the key to unraveling the final mystery and possibly to finding the missing artifact. In the darkness of the labyrinth, Emily advanced cautiously, guided only by the faint light of Victoria's flashlight in the distance. Without her own medallion or map to guide her, she depended entirely on following the historian without being detected. After several minutes traversing sinuous corridors and descending spiral staircases, Emily realized they were heading to an area of the labyrinth that she and Anthony hadn't explored. Victoria seemed to know the way perfectly, moving with confidence through the darkness, as if she had traveled that path countless times before. Finally, the passage led to a circular chamber larger than the one where Emily had found the artifact. This room, unlike the previous one, was illuminated by ancient oil lamps fixed to the walls, creating a golden and flickering environment. In the center, a round stone table was surrounded by 12 carved chairs, each with a different symbol engraved on the backrest. And standing next to the table, handling the artifact that Emily had hidden in the music room, was a figure she would never have expected to find there. Mom. The name escaped her like an incredulous sigh. Elizabeth Mitchell turned slowly, showing no surprise, as if she had been expecting this moment. Her hair, grayer than Emily remembered, framed a face that combined the classic beauty of the Mitchells with an expression of iron determination. "Emily," she replied simply, as if 5 years hadn't passed since her supposed death. "The time has finally come." You're alive," Emily stammered, feeling her legs weaken. "All this time—" "It was necessary, dear," Elizabeth replied, her tone simultaneously affectionate and pragmatic. "Some sacrifices are inevitable when guarding a secret like ours." Victoria approached Elizabeth with a familiarity that suggested years of collaboration. "The others are looking for her everywhere," she informed, "and the consortium will arrive at any moment." "Then we must hurry," Elizabeth replied, turning her attention back to the object in her hands. Emily finally managed to overcome the initial shock enough to observe the artifact that her mother was holding. Free from the velvet that covered it, it revealed itself as an apparently ordinary crystal sphere, the size of a tennis ball, with an amber core that seemed to pulse with its own light. "What is this, after all?" Emily asked, hesitantly approaching. "Why are so many people willing to do anything to possess it?" Elizabeth and Victoria exchanged a significant look before the elder Mitchell responded. "This, my daughter, is the Eye of Horus, or at least that's what we know it as. Its true name was lost millennia ago." Elizabeth raised the sphere, which sparkled in the lamplight. "It is one of the 12 artifacts of antiquity, objects of unimaginable power that were dispersed throughout the world to prevent their combined energy from falling into the wrong hands. Augustus found it by chance during the excavations for the foundation of this house in 1932, continued Victoria, her professorial tone evidencing her background as a historian. He recognized its value immediately, not the monetary value, but its historical and metaphysical significance. "Metaphysical?" Emily repeated, incredulous. "The Eye of Horus is not just a relic, Emily," explained Elizabeth. "It's a tool, a key to knowledge beyond common understanding. And that's why the Phoenix Consortium wants it so desperately, completed Victoria. They already possess 7 of the 12 artifacts. With each new acquisition, their power and influence grow exponentially. Emily looked from her mother to Victoria, trying to process the whirlwind of revelations. Her family had guarded an object of ancient power for almost a century. Her mother, whom she believed had died of natural causes 5 years ago, was alive and apparently involved in some kind of secret society. And now powerful international forces were converging on her house in search of this mysterious artifact. I don't understand, Emily shook her head, confused. If you're alive and knew about all this, why did you leave me alone all these years? Why did you let me suffer believing I had lost you, while our family crumbled financially? The pain in her voice was palpable, and for an instant Elizabeth's mask of determination faltered, revealing the loving mother that Emily remembered. It was the only way to protect you, dear, Elizabeth answered softly. As long as you knew nothing, you would be safe. As long as the world believed I was dead, they wouldn't look for me to get to the artifact. And what about my father? Emily questioned, the pieces finally falling into place. He didn't lose our fortune in gambling, did he? It was all part of the plan. Your father was an extraordinary man, confirmed Elizabeth. He sacrificed everything: wealth, reputation, even the chance to see his only daughter grow up, to keep the Mitchell legacy protected. He staged his own financial ruin to divert attention from the family's true treasure. Emily tried to absorb all of this. Her entire life had been built on secrets and sacrifices of which she had never known. For years, she had carried shame for her father's supposed irresponsibility, resentment for her mother's abandonment, and determination to rescue the dignity of the Mitchell name. And now she discovered that it had all been part of an elaborate plan to protect an ancient and mysterious artifact. And Richard? She asked, feeling the old wound reopen. Was he involved from the beginning? Was our relationship just a mission for him? Elizabeth hesitated, and it was Victoria who answered. Richard Carter was recruited by the Phoenix Consortium 8 years ago, specifically to approach your family and discover the whereabouts of the Eye of Horus. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for, only that it was hidden in the Mitchell mansion. So nothing was real, Emily murmured, feeling a strange mixture of pain and relief at the confirmation. Absolutely nothing. Don't underestimate your own strength, Emily, Victoria continued, surprisingly gentle. Richard may have initiated the relationship by orders from the consortium, but we know that eventually his feelings became genuine. That's why he disappeared so abruptly, without taking any valuable information about the labyrinth. He chose to distance himself instead of betraying you completely. Emily didn't know if that information made everything better or worse. In any case, there was no time to analyze old emotional wounds. The present demanded immediate action. And now, what do we do? She asked, instinctively assuming the practical posture that had always been her trademark. Theodore and Richard are upstairs. Lucy is a hostage. And the Phoenix Consortium will arrive at any moment. Now, my daughter, Elizabeth replied, extending the Eye of Horus toward Emily, you assume your place as guardian of the Mitchell legacy. Emily looked at the shimmering artifact, feeling a strange recognition emanate from its amber core, as if the sphere responded to her presence. The famous amber eyes of the Mitchells and the golden nucleus of the artifact seemed to vibrate at the same ancestral frequency. Why me? She asked, although she already suspected the answer. Because it is your destiny, replied Elizabeth solemnly, because you are the last of the direct lineage of Augustus Mitchell, and because you, unlike me or your father, possess the perfect combination of astuteness and compassion necessary to protect the artifact in the times to come. A distant rumble reverberated through the stone walls. It sounded like the main door of the mansion being broken down. They've arrived, announced Victoria, suddenly alert. The consortium is here. Elizabeth moved quickly to one of the chairs around the round table, the one with the symbol of an eye carved on the backrest, and pressed something on the base. A secret compartment opened in the seat. Store the artifact. Here, Emily, she instructed. This is one of the 12 hiding places that Augustus prepared inside the labyrinth. It's temporary, but it will give us time to deal with our guests. Emily hesitated, feeling the weight of responsibility. And if we can't stop them? The Mitchells have guarded this secret for almost a century, replied Elizabeth with a confident smile. It won't be today that we fail. As she deposited the Eye of Horus in the secret compartment, Emily realized that her life had changed irrevocably. The legacy she had inherited was much greater than a ruined mansion or a once prestigious family name. It was a mission that transcended generations, a commitment to something she was just beginning to understand. Voices echoed through the corridors of the labyrinth, some familiar, others unknown. The final confrontation was approaching. "I'm ready," declared Emily, straightening her shoulders with renewed determination. Elizabeth and Victoria exchanged looks of approval. The new guardian of the Mitchells had accepted her destiny just in time to face the greatest threat that the family legacy had ever known. The Phoenix Consortium had arrived in Blue Cedar, and the battle for the Eye of Horus was about to begin. The air in the underground labyrinth of the Mitchell mansion was charged with tension. Emily, her mother Elizabeth, and the historian Victoria remained silent, listening attentively to the voices and footsteps that echoed through the stone corridors. The Eye of Horus was temporarily safe in the secret compartment, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time until the invaders found the central chamber. "We need a plan," whispered Emily, her mind working frantically. "How many people does the consortium usually send?" "A standard extraction team, 4 trained operatives plus the official representative," replied Victoria, with the precision of someone who knew the procedures well. "Added to Theodore and Richard." "And we need to rescue Lucy," added Emily, remembering her friend still held hostage in the library. Elizabeth nodded, heading to one of the walls of the circular chamber. She pressed 3 specific points in sequence, revealing a small niche where 3 devices, similar to antique watches, rested. "Communicators," she explained, handing one to each. "Developed for the Guardians. They work through frequencies generated by the labyrinth itself." Emily adjusted the strange device on her wrist, impressed with the level of preparation that existed behind the Mitchell facade of decay. "We'll separate," decided Elizabeth. "Victoria, use the East Passage to reach the library and free the journalist. Emily and I will create a distraction." "What kind of distraction?" asked Emily, unsure. An enigmatic smile appeared on Elizabeth's lips. "The labyrinth was built with more than one purpose, daughter. Not just to protect the artifact, but also to confuse and disorient those who are not welcome." She removed from her pocket a small device with a single button. "This will activate the secondary defense system." Augustus was a man ahead of his time. "Defense system?" Emily raised her eyebrows, surprised by yet another revelation. "Nothing lethal," assured Elizabeth, "but extremely effective." A distant crash, followed by an exclamation of victory, indicated that the invaders had discovered one of the entrances to the labyrinth. "It's time," declared Elizabeth, her expression becoming serious. "Victoria, go. Emily, with me." The historian quickly disappeared through a side passage, while mother and daughter followed another corridor. Emily felt strangely calm now that the confrontation was imminent. After years believing herself to be the last of the Mitchells, carrying alone the weight of a ruined legacy, she discovered herself part of something greater, connected to a tradition of guardians that went back to her grandfather. "Why did you never tell me?" she asked, as they advanced through the narrow corridor. "Why all this secrecy, even within the family?" "Compartmentalized protection," replied Elizabeth without slowing her pace. "The less each person knew, the less they could reveal if captured. Your father knew only about the labyrinth, but not about the Eye of Horus. I knew about the artifact, but not all the passages. Only Augustus knew the complete system. And you faked your death for 5 years." "It was the hardest decision of my life," Elizabeth replied, her voice finally betraying emotion. "But the consortium was getting closer. We needed to create additional layers of protection." They reached a small chamber with 4 different exits. Elizabeth consulted something on her communicator before choosing the path to the right. "We're almost in position," she informed. "This section of the labyrinth is directly under the entrance hall. We'll be able to monitor their movements." Emily nodded, trying to mentally orient herself in the complex system of tunnels. She no longer heard voices or footsteps, which was even more disturbing than the previous noise. The communicator on her wrist vibrated softly. Victoria's voice sounded low and urgent. Consortium team confirmed. 4 armed operatives plus the representative, a man named Steiner. Theodore and Richard are with them, apparently cooperating but tense. The journalist is still in the library, guarded by one of the operatives. Understood, replied Elizabeth. Maintain position until my signal. Emily looked at her mother, admiring her calmness in the midst of crisis. How many similar situations had Elizabeth faced during years as a secret guardian? What exactly does the Eye of Horus do? Asked Emily, taking advantage of these last moments of relative calm. Elizabeth hesitated briefly. In simple terms, it's an amplifier and catalyst of energy, she explained. In less simple terms, it's a portal to knowledge that humanity is not ready to possess. In the right hands, like those of the Guardians, it remains inert, protected. In the wrong hands, like those of the Phoenix Consortium. Exactly. They believe that with the 12 artifacts reunited, they will achieve unlimited power. What they don't understand is that the artifacts were separated for a reason. Together, they create an instability impossible to control. A noise above them interrupted the conversation. Footsteps in the entrance hall, muffled voices discussing directions. Through small openings in the structure, strategically positioned for surveillance, Emily managed to glimpse the invaders. 4 men in dark suits with postures that betrayed military training surrounded an older man with impeccably combed white hair and an elegant grey suit. This, Emily presumed, must be Steiner, the consortium representative. Theodore and Richard remained slightly apart, their tense faces revealing the precarious nature of their association with the group. Blackwood, your incompetence is impressive. Steiner's voice was cold, with a slight Germanic accent. Weeks of preparation, and you couldn't even locate the artifact before our arrival. There were unexpected complications, Theodore defended himself, visibly intimidated. Miss Mitchell seems to know more about the labyrinth than we anticipated. Excuses, Steiner cut him off dryly. The consortium does not tolerate failures. Mr. Carter, I assume your previous familiarity with the owner might be more useful at this moment. Richard stepped forward, displaying that confidence that Emily had known so well. Emily is intelligent but sentimental. If we find her, I can persuade her to cooperate. Elizabeth touched Emily's arm, noticing her tension upon hearing Richard's words. Don't let him affect you, she murmured. Men like him only know manipulation as a form of connection. Emily nodded, grateful for the maternal understanding she had missed so much in recent years. The communicator vibrated again, Victoria informing that she had managed to locate Lucy and was ready to free her at the agreed signal. It's time, declared Elizabeth, raising the small device. When I activate this, the labyrinth will initiate a sequence of structural changes. Passages will open and close automatically, separating the group. Our window of opportunity will be only a few minutes. What should I do? Asked Emily. Return to the central chamber. Protect the artifact. I will lead Steiner away toward the lower labyrinth. Victoria will free your friend, and the 3 of you will find the exit through the north passage, which leads to the back garden. There, if everything goes as planned, Anthony will be waiting with reinforcements. Emily hesitated, reluctant to separate from the mother she had just found again. What about you? Elizabeth smiled, touching her daughter's face with affection. I am a Mitchell. I know my duty. Before Emily could protest, Elizabeth pressed the button. An almost imperceptible ancient mechanism began to vibrate in the walls of the labyrinth. Stone moved against stone with a low groan, and suddenly the floor beneath the feet of the group in the entrance hall opened, forming a steep ramp that led them to the lower tunnels amid cries of surprise. Now! Elizabeth pushed Emily toward the corridor that led to the central chamber. Go! Emily ran, her heart racing as the labyrinth transformed around her. Walls slid, corridors changed direction, and what was previously a blocked passage now opened invitingly. Decades ago, her grandfather had created an engineering marvel hidden inside an apparently ordinary mansion, protecting a secret that transcended generations. She reached the circular chamber just as Victoria and Lucy entered through another passage. The journalist appeared shaken but unharmed. Her eyes widened at the magnitude of the discovery. "Emily!" exclaimed Lucy, briefly hugging her friend. "Your mother is alive! And this house! It's incredible!" "There's no time for explanations," intervened Victoria. "We need to recover the artifact and head to the extraction point." Emily nodded, quickly heading to the chair with the eye symbol. She activated the mechanism, opened the secret compartment, and, empty, the Eye of Horus had disappeared. "Impossible," murmured Victoria, paling. "No one besides us knows this hiding place." A slow applause echoed through the chamber. The three women turned abruptly. Richard Carter emerged from one of the passages, holding the shimmering artifact in one hand. His arrogant smile contrasted with something unexpected in his eyes, a genuine sadness when his gaze met Emily's. "They've always underestimated my intelligence," he said. "Even after 3 years working for the consortium, they still treat me like a simple pawn." He raised the Eye of Horus, which now pulsed with a more intense amber light. "With this, I'll finally have the respect I deserve." "Richard, you don't understand what you're holding." Emily took a cautious step in his direction. "It's not just a valuable object, it's dangerous in the wrong hands." "In the wrong hands," he repeated slowly. "Like those of the consortium, which plans to use it to influence governments and global markets, or like those of your family, which kept it hidden for decades without realizing its true potential." "The true potential of the artifact is not to be used but protected," intervened Victoria. "The 12 artifacts were separated to avoid catastrophes." Richard laughed bitterly. "Stories to scare children. This object is ancient science, not magic, and I intend to discover exactly how it works." A sudden tremor shook the chamber. Dust and small fragments of stone began to fall from the ceiling. "The defense system is destabilizing the structure," warned Victoria. "This entire place will collapse if we don't leave soon." "Come with us, Richard," offered Emily, extending her hand. "It's not too late to make the right choice." Something wavered. In Richard's gaze, that same vulnerability that had once made Emily believe in his love. For an instant, it seemed he might yield. Then the communicator on Emily's wrist vibrated with an urgent message from Elizabeth. "Steiner is heading to the central chamber, armed and dangerous. Leave immediately." Richard noticed the change in Emily's expression and backed away, pressing the artifact against his chest. "Goodbye, Emily, perhaps in another life." Before he could complete the phrase, a new passage opened in the wall behind him. Elizabeth Mitchell emerged, breathless and with a cut on her forehead, but her amber eyes shone with fierce determination. "Not so fast, Mr. Carter," she declared, pointing what appeared to be an antique dueling pistol. "The Eye of Horus remains with the Mitchells." The moment of tension was interrupted by a shrill sound, a kind of ancient alarm echoing through the walls of the labyrinth. "The system is collapsing," warned Victoria with urgency. "We have less than 5 minutes before the entire labyrinth is permanently sealed." Emily looked at her mother, at Richard with the artifact, at her friends in danger. Decades of secrets, sacrifices, and protection converged on this crucial moment. With a sudden movement that surprised everyone, including herself, Emily advanced toward Richard. Not to attack him, but to do something unexpected. She touched the Eye of Horus in his hands. The artifact reacted instantly, its amber core intensifying to an almost blinding glow that seemed to resonate with Emily's eyes. An ancestral connection. Activated. The Mitchell blood recognized by the millennia-old object. "This belongs to my family," declared Emily with an authority she had never known she possessed. Not out of greed or power, but out of duty. To everyone's amazement, the Eye of Horus slid from Richard's hands to Emily's as if it had a will of its own. The artifact calmed in her touch, returning to a soft, constant glow. "Impossible," murmured Richard, astonished. "The blood bond," explained Elizabeth with evident pride. "The artifact recognizes its legitimate guardian." Another tremor, stronger, shook the chamber. There was no more time for confrontations. "Leave now," ordered Victoria, pushing Lucy toward the north passage. The structure is collapsing. Elizabeth looked at Emily, a silent communication passing between mother and daughter. Years of separation disappeared in that instant of mutual understanding. Emily nodded, recognizing her responsibility. "Richard, come with us," she offered one last time. He hesitated, torn between pride and self-preservation. Finally, he nodded, following the group through the corridor that led to the garden exit. As they ran through the collapsing labyrinth, Emily felt the eye of Horus pulse against her chest, almost like a second heart. Generations of Mitchells had dedicated their lives to protecting this secret. Now that responsibility was hers. They emerged in the back garden of the mansion under a starry night sky, exactly when a dull rumble announced the final collapse of the labyrinth. Anthony Winters waited with 2 trusted federal police officers, ready to ensure the group's safety and the discreet containment of the incident. As she observed the old family mansion under the moonlight, Emily understood that the true legacy of the Mitchells was never in the stone walls or elegant halls, but in the courage and determination passed from generation to generation. The Eye of Horus would remain protected. The tradition of the Guardians would continue, and Emily Mitchell, who once believed she had lost everything, discovered herself the heir to a greater purpose than she had ever imagined. Dear listeners, we hope that Emily's journey through the secrets of the Mitchell family has touched your hearts. To continue exploring equally engaging stories of mystery, family legacy, and surprising discoveries, we've prepared a special playlist available at the link to the left. If this narrative sparked your imagination, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Daily we bring unique stories that explore the complexities of life and the mysteries that surround us. Share your theories and impressions in the comments. Who knows what other secrets the Mitchells still guard? Until the next story,